All right, hello everybody, and welcome to our fifth episode of the Dental Disruptors Podcast. I am Jake Larsen, your host. This is my co-host Clint Berry, and we've got a super awesome guest with us today, and a good friend of ours, Rami Rustom from Arini. So we're really excited to have him. Welcome, Rami. It's going to be great to learn from you and hear a little bit about Arini.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited. This is awesome.
If you haven't heard of Arini, they are a phenomenal new AI tool inside of the dental industry. They're doing some amazing things, and so let's just begin there, Rami. There's lots of questions and stuff that Clint and I have for you. Lots of things we want to discuss, but before we dive into AI in dentistry and kind of the future of AI, let's start by learning a little bit about you first, and then we'll talk about Arini after that. So give us a little bit of background about yourself, kind of where you came from and how you got into the AI space and dentistry space.
Right. So how I ended up in dentistry is a very interesting story and coincidence. But when I was younger, my dad, with his dentist friend, in around like 2008, 2009, they actually started a dental group. And I think seeing them live through that experience, I was like, oh man, I'm never going to end up in this space. And it was, but here we are. No, it's awesome. So I studied computer science at MIT and was always either working at startups or starting my own. I met my co-founder Abdul in high school, and since then we've always just been hacking on stuff together. During college, I actually left school for a bit to join as a founding engineer at a construction technology startup in San Francisco. Did that for a bit, and then eventually COVID hit. I went back to school, and then after graduating, I started a company with Abdul. We worked on that for a year, shut it down, and then eventually both ended up working at the same kind of startup where we led a lot of the AI efforts there. It was called Threads. It was like a workplace communication tool, like a Slack competitor. But then after working there for a few months, we got the itch again to do our own thing, and we started talking to customers and talking to people. We spent around 6 months just trying to find something that we really were excited about. And that's where we ended up back in dentistry, or at least I did. And so we talked to a lot of people, and the biggest complaint that everyone had was around, how hard it is to find, train, and retain a high quality front office staff. Yeah. And at first, all the dentists wanted us to build like a recruiting tool or a staffing solution. But then I think we realized, with AI these days, with our background, we could actually reduce the demand for front office staff as opposed to try to increase the supply magically somehow. And so that's how Arini was born. That was like November 2023.
At what point did you realize that group that your dad was with and your desire to never be there now was like full circle, and you were like, all right, here we go. Let's just own this and let's rock it?
Yeah, I think so. His background, it was in sales and kind of business development, and his partner was a dentist. And so I think the big struggle was always bringing a lot of kind of best practices from the tech world or from outside and into the dental space. And I think that's where they, for example, set up a call center. They were using CRM tools. They were using analytics. They were very early to use like cloud PMSs. But I think, I don't know, it seemed, I never thought that I'd be doing the same thing like 10 years later.
Yeah. Awesome.
Or 15, I don't even know how many years ago that was at this point. But yeah.
And you guys are crushing it. I mean, I've followed Arini now for a while and love what you guys are doing. having been at Weave and talked to a lot of front desk individuals and office managers about the importance of phones and all of that, it's fascinating to see how it's not just simply replacing people from and you'll dive into this, I'm sure, but also just like maximizing efficiency, maximizing the outputs that they're getting from these phone calls and stuff like that. So really cool stuff. So let's dive into that, unless Clint has something he wants to jump in and say. But
I do want to say, he said it nonchalantly, but so I got to meet Rami for the first time in person at that DEO conference we went to last year, and got to go to dinner with Rami. And so he mentioned it, but casually, that he went to MIT. Rami's a brilliant dude, and when you go to dinner with him, you get like this little taste of it, and you're like, wow, this guy's a smart engineer and a smart person and a good person. And so, he's great. His co-founder's great. I met relatives there too. So it's like it's a good group of people.
Which is why we asked Rami to be our first guest on Dental Disruptors Podcast. He exemplifies the type of people that are disrupting dentistry in a really positive way. So let's talk about that, Rami. Tell us a little bit about your solution at Arini.
You guys are too kind. All right, so what is Arini? What do we do? Arini is an AI receptionist that answers the phone, schedules appointments. That's how we started. That's our bread and butter. We integrate directly with practice management software to be able to schedule patients, cancel appointments, answer questions about appointments, and really handle any type of phone call that comes in, and that keeps the front desk busy. I think, you kind of alluded to this, but the idea is not really to replace staff. There's an infinite amount of work to do at the front desk. And, dental practices are spending so much time and effort and money to be able to get phone calls to come in the first place, right? They could, that phone call could cost hundreds of dollars, advertising and so much more. And then, practices on average are missing like 30-40% of phone calls. And so, in terms of KPIs that are very important here is how much each new patient is costing the practice. I think that's something that people don't realize. And then how much, what the real value is, lifetime value of each new patient. And so once you actually quantify those two things, you realize how important, like what the real value of a missed call is. And I think that's kind of like explaining that to, and like trying to quantify it with practices that we work with, makes the ROI very clear for having an AI receptionist. Even though sometimes, it's not perfect, and, sometimes it needs some extra training to get it right. But, even if it's not answering 100% of the phone calls that come in, because, sometimes people will use Arini as an overflow service or something like that. But capturing even just one single missed call, if you know the value of that phone call, is an instant return on investment.
That's so cool. At Weave, I had thousands of conversations about phone calls. And there was a time, I just find what you said super fascinating, because there was a time at Weave that we added a feature that would track and show them their missed calls by time of day. And when I was selling Weave, we would always highlight that and talk about the value of these missed phone calls as a value proposition to try to sell our platform. But the interesting thing is that the only solution that we could provide with that feature was simply making them aware of those times when maybe they were understaffed. And our solution was, well, you're understaffed, so now maybe you would make different business decisions to hire somebody or to stagger your lunches or something like that. But it's really cool to hear what you're saying, because it comes full circle of this evolving disruption that's happening in dentistry, where going from an analog phone system with no data to a Weave type system where at least you can track missed calls, to now having legit tools that you can just plug in rather than hiring people, and basically assure the office that you're never going to miss a call, that every one of those phone calls that you've spent hundreds of dollars to just get that phone to ring is going to be answered, and those opportunities are not going to slip through the cracks anymore. So hearing you say that brought back those thousands of conversations that I had of like, look at your lunch hour, you're missing 10 calls a day here. How much did it cost for that phone call to come through? Are you okay with missing that, right? Like building that value for the office, you really have a solution that changes the game for a front desk team, for the owners. If it's a DSO, imagine the impact that has if they have hundreds of offices, like crazy. So anyway, I just thought that was fascinating for me to hear that evolving journey of technology helping and disrupting and making dentistry better and serving more people.
Yeah, it must mean we're on the right track, because we have the same graph, and that's my favorite graph to show people, is here's where you're getting calls throughout the day, and you see the spike during lunch, and then you see the spike right before the practice opens, and then right after it closes.
Right after it closes. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And no offense to, we called the office manager Becky. That, it's just kind of a name that we use. And so no offense to Becky, but by 4:00, they've been getting hounded by the phone ringing, by insurance. Like they are tired and they're just ready to go home. But for the owner and the dentist, that hour right as the business is closing or opening, as they're getting kids to school and then they get into the office as fast as they can, like there's only so much that they can do to improve those key times of day. And what you guys provide is an amazing solution and an incredible ROI. I don't even know what Arini costs, but for those listening, like you should totally consider this, because the ROI is super clear, the impact that's going to have. So that's fascinating. And kudos to Clint, because he built that, the missed call tracking capabilities in Weave. So yeah. So besides that, let's dig in. So that's kind of what AI is now, in particular with Arini. I'd love to hear how you feel like, or what you're seeing in the industry as far as like how this is going to evolve, right? Like this is a big impact, what you're doing now. But as Clint alluded to, I'm sure that there's lots of other ideas that you and your co-founder are thinking about, exploring, and just how do you see AI continuing to evolve and impact the industry even further?
I mean, I think it's very hard for humans to internalize exponentials. And I think what we don't realize is that this is the AI right now today is the fastest evolving technology humanity's ever seen. Like Moore's law, which dictated the progress of like integrated circuits and like what made smartphones and computers and laptops cheaper and faster every year. That rate of progress was 2x every 18 months. So your laptop got twice as powerful and twice as and half the cost every 18 months. AI models today, LLMs, are getting 10 times cheaper and 10 times smarter every 12 months. It's a different order of magnitude of progress. And so I think what might have seemed like science fiction, or like maybe we'll have this thing like 5-10 years from now, it's showing up every 6 months. Like every 6 months we're having one of these moments where it's like, holy cow, like I thought that we wouldn't see this in my lifetime, and now here it is. So with that kind of happening, I think this dictates the rate of progress and disruption that we're going to see in the dental space over the next months, not years, months. Now, of course, rate of progress in AI is one thing. How quickly it gets applied in the real world and in the dental space is another. And I think our job is to bridge that gap and do arbitrage on that, right? So with that being said, like where we think the dental space is going, and like really any space that for so long has been kind of dictated by legacy software. And here, I mean, like the practice management software. And Kala's innovation, right, is arbitrage on that antiquated software as well, right? is being able to bridge the gap between startups who need to move fast and these antiquated legacy systems. So with AI, I think the huge opportunity is that is the development of agents, AI agents, and these AI agents, are getting more and more sophisticated. And what that means is that you can give them more and more responsibility and more like big picture instructions. It used to be that like a few months ago or maybe a year ago, you had to be very detailed in your prompt to ChatGPT to get it to do something, right? And it was a lot of back and forth until it got it right, until it figured out what it needed to do. Today, you can give a very simple objective, high-level objective to an agent, and the agent is going to break it down into multiple steps that it needs to do. It's going to iterate on those steps. It's going to give itself feedback until it achieves that high-level objective. And this is what everyone is working on and trying to figure out now, is how to get these agents to be as effective, as reliable as possible. So we're seeing this in like programming agents. Now they're insanely capable, where you give it an objective like build me an app that does this, and then it's going to create the back end, it's going to create the front end, it's going to link them together, it's going to deploy them on a hosting solution, right? Yeah. And this was all from a single high-level objective instruction. So that's the power of agents, and it's not just like an LLM prompt or anything, or it's this agentic multi-step capability. So, like right now, our solution just answers phone calls coming in. The next iteration of this is an agent where you give it a high-level objective of like increase the number of new patient bookings, right? Or like, I want you to be responsible for this KPI, right? And I think not just dental, but every industry is going to start seeing these agents become more and more prevalent and capable over the next few months. And as people start interacting with these agents, people won't need to interact with like the underlying systems as much. So in the case of dentistry, if you have your front desk receptionist agent, you have your revenue cycle management agent, you have your treatment plan coordinator agent, you're going to be interfacing more and more with those agents as a either clinician or staff member in a clinic, and less with the practice management software. And so that creates opportunity for this entire stack of software that dentists have been relying on to be completely reinvented. We're just going to have agents and data. We don't need all of these antiquated systems. And, obviously the more data you have, the more powerful these agents are. And the more the data makes sense, and is kind of like standardized, the more powerful the agents are going to become. So I think there's a lot of opportunities for reinventing this entire stack. And that stack, I think of like data and agents, is going to be the case for dental. It's going to be the case in all other verticals in healthcare, in logistics, and anywhere where there's like antiquated systems that lock up a lot of this data. Where the source of truth was kind of like, again, behind these like closed doors, is now going to be completely reinvented. To recap, I think where we're headed is agents, data, and that's going to be the future of all the tools that people are going to be using in dental and beyond.
I love this vision so much. And this is like one of the big reasons I wanted to get you on here, is because when you told me that first, when I was talking to you on the phone a few days ago, I was like, okay, that's really cool. But at first I was kind of like, no, this can't be. And then I sat and thought about it even more. And I was like, okay, well, what about like the clinical side? Like, no, you can't have, like, they're going to still put their stuff in the practice management. And then I realized we have customers that are doing the dictation part. And so the dentist is inspecting your teeth and he's dictating what the problems are, and it's automatically going into the practice management system. And he's not even using the practice management system anymore, he or she, the dentist. And so every situation that I thought about over the last few days, I was like, oh my gosh, an agent totally could do it. And I think your vision is like so awesome, where we're going to see just massive disruption over the next year or so, which is so exciting. I do think dental is historically really slow to adopt things. Obviously, like 50 to 60% still on-premise software in the industry, which is just crazy to think about. So we'll have to see how accelerated this gets. But I think, like you said, the 10x increases in cheapness and effectiveness are going to drive a lot of adoption. And then also, just the savings on staff, or being able to repurpose staff to like more important things, like interfacing with the customers that are actually in the office, the patients that are in the office, and providing a better experience for them, is so awesome. So I love this vision that you're outlining. I think it's a cool one.
Yeah, and what's cool is like a lot of the complexity I feel like with PMSs is building these interfaces for people to be able to use them, because you have so many different personas using the software, right? Like you have the clinician, like you said, looking at charts and looking at x-rays and whatnot. And then you have the front office staff. And then you have the regional manager who's looking at like dashboards and reports and all these things. And what's cool now is that as long as you have the data, these AI can help you generate interfaces on the fly. So I think like the cost of developing this kind of software is at least halved, if not exponentially cheaper. So you don't have to build all these complex interfaces. AI can generate a personalized view if you want it, whenever you need it. So if, like you said, like they're a clinician might be in the chair dictating, and then whenever they want to see the charts or whatever, the AI system will generate it from the data in a personalized view just for them. And then that's it. And then, it'll go back to working silently in the background.
It's so crazy to think about, like generating it on the fly. And it can. Like I've used that, like a couple of these like lovable AI, and you're like, I want a user interface that does this. And it's like, it's still right now, it feels like a very entry-level developer, but it's an entry-level developer that's 100x faster than an entry-level developer. Like it literally spun up the user interface exactly the way I wanted it, put the features in. And so, that's just crazy to think about. On-demand user interfaces as needed, and that is a cool vision.
And like you said, today it's a junior developer. What we know for a fact is 12 months from now, it's going to be 10 times better.
Yeah. Unbelievable. So awesome.
Yeah, it won't be long. We'll look back at this episode, 12 months from now, and just laugh, right? How things evolve and change.
Yeah, the other big insight about these models is that like, and I think this is from like one of Sam Altman's like essays, is that the like intelligence is a function of like, and I don't know if this may be too technical for this podcast, but it's like a direct function of inference time compute capabilities. So basically, the more computers you give these models, the smarter they are. And there doesn't seem to actually be a bound to that. So what we're realizing is that the more GPUs and computers we're giving these LLMs, these models, they're actually getting better results. And it's not slowing down anytime soon. And so that's another big thing happening in parallel with the models getting better, is that you can actually just give them more compute and they give you better results.
Wow.
Invest in NVIDIA, everyone.
Yeah. Well, so just kind of coming full circle. So we've talked a lot about some things that are like the future of AI and like the power of it and where it can go. And then just to take a few steps back from all of that, just in the here and now, what Arini is doing and the immediate benefits that dental practices can receive just by simply using AI to drive in improved phone capabilities, right? Capturing all of those leads that come in. It's just so fascinating, so awesome to see how fast technology is making the world better for individuals and for businesses like dentistry. So cool. Well, Clint, you got any closing questions or comments? Otherwise, I'm going to give Rami a few more seconds to just kind of share his final thoughts.
No, I mean, I think this is just awesome. This is going to, hopefully this blows people's minds, or maybe it's too deep for our listeners, but I think it's great, obviously. And Rami's a technologist. He's a developer, computer scientist, and we picked him on purpose because I wanted that deeper insight. So maybe this is selfish because that's what I want to hear. But it's been great.
We're just here to geek out, and the audience can do their own thing.
Yeah, that's
exactly.
right. They can do whatever. It's all good.
Well, cool. Well, Rami, thanks for being here with us. You got any final words? Anything you want to say about Arini that we can share with our network?
No, I mean, I think you know, a lot of people are afraid of AI, and I think you know, it's just a matter of perspective, because what we know is that a lot, you know, this technology and this change is inevitable. And as a practice owner, to stay ahead of the curve, you know, I'm not saying that you need to adopt an AI receptionist tomorrow, but like knowing all of these changes and the rate of change that's happening, I would just encourage everyone to think for their own business, for their own practice, for their own group or DSO, what your AI strategy is for the next 6, 12 months, 18 months. Like, and that starts with, I think, having really good insight into how everything works in your business. Like, what are the KPIs that matter to you? Like you guys discussed in the previous episode. And then where does AI fit into kind of like achieving those goals that you have? Everyone should have a strategy for how AI or how they're going to integrate AI. It's just a matter of time. It doesn't have to be tomorrow, but you know, those who are moving the fastest are going to reap the greatest rewards. So maybe I'll end with that.
I love what you said, having a strategy. That strategy might be the AI for them is just recognizing those missed calls and how to capitalize on that. That can just be step one. And then once you start to feel more comfortable there and you see how it benefits your office, you'll then be prepared and probably a little bit more willing to try some other things that will also impact your business positively. So I love that advice of just don't feel like AI is just a single thing. It's so many different things. Just start with one that you know is going to impact your business. That's your baseline strategy. And then allow yourself to be open-minded to other things that will impact you in the same fashion that first step did, that will exponentially help you grow and run the best business and practice that you possibly can. So that's super awesome. Thank you so much. This was super fun. We appreciate it. And heck, maybe we'll see you at one of the shows here shortly, and maybe have you come on again in 6 months when AI is completely evolved and we're talking about new things. So
awesome. Thanks for having me, guys. It's awesome.
Thanks. A lot of fun.